Hi, guys. Welcome to Bible Breakdown. We're doing Isaiah chapter 24. So, this chapter is titled The Earth Judged. Y'all, I'm not going to lie. When I was reading this, I had so many questions because I was just like, I feel like I wasn't fully understanding what is trying to be said here. So, with that being said, please feel free to comment whatever you think about this chapter because I would love to know. So, I think the most important thing to talk about here is the setting of this chapter. And I've seen that they're talking about the end times in this chapter. So, this is like a layout of what we should expect to happen. So, from verses 1 to 2, I wrote, the whole earth is going under judgment, and there's no way to get around it. It doesn't matter what your status is, it doesn't matter who you will be judged. Then from verses 3 to 6, it's giving us the reason as to why we are being judged. So I feel like God is so fair because he always gives us the why. He's like, okay, this is what's happening, but this is why this is happening. So for the why, I wrote that humanity wanted to do things their own way, disregarding what the Lord already had established for them. Since mankind continued to reject the Lord, this is how he needed to respond. Let me just take a brief intermission because the devil is a liar. I tried to record this. This is my third time recording this. I had my microphone died, and then when I turned off my microphone, this was still plugged in, so you still couldn't hear me. So we're gonna try this again. Okay, I tested out the audio, we're good. So for verse 3, this is where I started to get confused because it says, the earth will be stripped completely bare and will be totally plundered, for the Lord has spoken this message. So the part that confused me was the first line saying the earth will be stripped completely bare. When I think back to Noah's Ark and that time, and the Lord saying like, hey, I'm never going to do this again. This is my covenant. This is why we have the rainbow, to signify the Lord will not wipe out the earth. But I'm like, Anisha, you need to think, because he never said he wasn't going to wipe out the earth. He said he was never going to flood the earth again. So when we go back to Genesis 9, verses 13 to 15, it says, I have placed my bow in the clouds, rainbow, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I form clouds over the earth and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all the living creatures. Water will never again become a flood to destroy every creature. Also, verse 16, sorry. The bow will be in the clouds, and I will look at it and remember the permanent covenant between God and all the living creatures on earth. So I'm like, okay, I'm taking this out of context because I'm just thinking like, oh, the Lord said he'll never wipe out the earth again, but he's saying he'll never wipe it out with water again. But then we move on to verses 5 and 6, and I'm like, okay, I had to keep rereading that section so many times because I guess I was still thinking before I realized what God said with Noah, and it was just messing me up. So I'm going to read verses 5 and 6, and then I'm going to read what I wrote about those two verses specifically. So verse 5 says, the earth is populated by its inhabitants, for they have transgressed teaching, overstepped decrees, and broken the permanent covenant. So it says permanent covenant, and what I read in Genesis also mentions a permanent covenant. So I'm like, are they talking about that, or is there another one? And there, I'm still kind of confused. So if you know, please let me know. Moving on to verse 6, it says, therefore a curse will consume the earth, and its inhabitants have become guilty. The earth's inhabitants have been burned, and only a few survive. So from that, I say for verse 5, the earth is filled with people and things that went against the law and overall just did too much. Now verse 6, I wrote, because of that, the earth is being cursed and the people still on it will suffer. So this is where the title of this chapter really makes sense, because it's talking about the earth being judged, not so much the people. So when it says, therefore a curse has consumed the earth itself is being cursed. But because we live here, we're suffering too. Listen, that's what I got from that. And because that was so difficult for me to understand, please let me know what y'all think if it's something otherwise. So yeah, continuing on to verses 7 to 13, I wrote that it's a detailed explanation of what to expect on this judgment day. So summing up those details, basically there's nothing that will be left. The earth will be wiped out clean, and cold. Like it's talking about no more joyful noise, no more drinking, no more singing, no more nothing. Like everything is done. And in verse 12, it says, only desolation remains in the city. Its gates have collapsed in ruins. So now moving forward, verses 14 to 16, I wrote that in the midst of all this chaos, the Lord is getting praised, but Isaiah continues to mourn the betrayal that people had towards God. Verse 16 is the best verse to talk about here because it says, from the ends of the earth we hear songs, the splendor of the righteous one. But I say, I waste away, woe is me. The treacherous act treacherously, the treacherous deal very treacherously. Now I have two more points to highlight for this chapter. So from verses 17 to 20. Now, starting from verses 17 and 18, I wrote that there's no escape because there's one thing after another. So those two verses say, panic, pit, and trap await you who dwell on the earth. Whoever flees at the sound of panic will fall into a pit, and whoever escapes from the pit will be caught in a trap. For the floodgates on high are open, and the foundation of the earth are shaken. And I also added there will be a massive earthquake that will cause full destruction to the earth. Like, this will wipe out the earth so bad, it can't be put back together. So for that, verse 19 and 20, it says, the earth will be split open, it will be violently shaken. And then in verse 20 at the end, it says, earth's rebellion weighs it down, and it falls never to rise again. Now for my last point of this chapter, finally made it to the end. Verses 21 to 23, I wrote, so the Lord will section off the ones that stood against him, and after some time they will be punished, and he will reign as king. And in verse 22, it says, they will be gathered together like prisoners in a pit. They will be confined to a dungeon. After many days, they will be punished. So there is a lot going on. There's a lot. And you can definitely tell it's going to be suffrage. Like, Judgment Day, it's no joke. So with that being said, that is the end of this chapter. That's all I have for you guys. And I'll see you guys right after this video for Isaiah chapter 25. I love y'all. God loves y'all more. Have a great night.